The number one advice I give to new tech sales professionals is you need to have your job feel as normal as possible, as quickly as possible. But what do I even mean, and where is that advice even coming from? As a quick aside, thanks again for all the support. Subscribe if you like our channel and are finding value. We are coming out with a newsletter soon, so more details to come. But the reason that I give this advice to new tech sales professionals is understandably, when you're changing into tech sales for the first time, it's very nerve-wracking, it's a new skill, you've got to learn a lot, you're very uncomfortable, your emotions swing up and down, and that's totally understandable, and that's 100% okay. But what this translates to is a few different things when you're interacting with prospects, and it's hurting your ability to be very effective and a high performer in your own role. As an example, in my own experience, when I first started doing tech sales, even though I had customer-facing experience as an engineer, when I got on a cold call for the first time, my adrenaline was so high, and I was so nervous and like so over the top on the edge. And the reality is, while some of that is 100% natural and you're just gonna have to get some reps in to get over that, the flip side is if you're not honest with yourself and you're not telling yourself why you're nervous and quickly uncovering the gaps, it usually comes back to you not knowing your product well enough and thus feeling insecure about your ability to drive a conversation. While there are tons of people who do not like salespeople, there are customers who are actively engaged in the buying process. They know they need to buy a new solution, and there is nothing they hate more than an underprepared or nervous salesman who can't just hold it together, walk them through a streamlined experience. So all that to say, if you're an SDR making cold calls and you catch someone who's actually casually been doing research on products in your category, now you're so excited to actually talk to someone, you get nervous and they're like, they can tell it's gonna be a waste of their time. Whereas if this is normal, if this is something you do every day, you're reaching out because you've worked with other clients that have used technology similar to yours. You're reaching out to companies like theirs because you often see insert the blank specific to your tech company. If you're driving and commanding that message, the individual prospect can tell you've done this a lot of times. Even though it's a sales call, they're going to respect it and they're going to appreciate how informed and how succinct you are, especially the more and more technical you go. If you're coming from a non-technical background, marketing, communications, anything else, right? And you're now selling a software tool to developers that have 5 to 10 or even more years of experience in the industry. Of course, you're not gonna know all about your product. You can't sit there and say, okay, well, what's the sales hack to do that? How am I gonna find the best sales tactic to get them to talk? It's just impossible to hack your way with sales tips and tricks through the conversation. You don't have to know code. You don't have to be writing code and actively using your product on a daily basis. But at the same time, there's a level, especially in highly technical sales, of the product that you just have to know, or you can't even engage and have meaningful conversations. And it's why tech sales is really difficult to get into in many cases in the first place. But that being said, again, if you are insecure on phone calls and you're worried about that, it probably means you don't know enough about your product. Are you doing the research to really understand not only the value that your product provides, but the most common competitors that you hear when you're talking to these different prospects? Are you able to succinctly ask them about common challenges that people who are using competitive products often face? Are you able to quickly uncover a real need on their end and also point them to the value at a high level that your product provides? If you're not sure the best way to go about that, it's a combination, yes, of both sales tactics and product knowledge, but I think especially in very highly technical sales, especially with folks that don't have that technical background, you see a line of code and you freeze up. And the second that someone like a software engineer is asking you on the phone, like, how do I implement this X, Y, and Z feature? You kind of freeze up and you don't know what to do. And the reality is, it's this marriage between both the highly technical aspects and the sales strategy that you have to learn how to navigate at all times. One of the biggest accounts that I ever landed in a previous role of mine was at a database company where a CTO of an e-commerce company called me about 3 weeks before Black Friday, and they were in sheer panic mode. Their existing database at the time was not scaling to handle their needs. For a lot of different reasons, they were expecting 700% growth year over year. And so when they came to us, they were asking me right out of the gate, how do I implement this? How do I do this with your database? How do I do X, Y, and Z? And the more I spoke with them over the course of 15 to 20 minutes, I was able to command the message and talk to them and say, hey, CTO, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm getting a lot of the requirements that you're mentioning. I guess on a foundational level, I know you're looking at a couple different products in this space, and so I just want to take a quick step back and mention some of the things that we're going to do well for your use case that may not be available in others. Again, I didn't know how to write these things in code, but there were clear feature differentiators from some of the products that CTO had mentioned that he wasn't even aware that product didn't have. And so if I didn't clearly drive that message home and I didn't clearly and succinctly provide that value to them, they would have tested both in parallel. They may have gotten something working with our competitor, which was known to be easier to use up front, but really was challenging to scale to the size that CTO needed. And these are the things from a sales perspective, again, knowing down to the level of feature differentiators amongst common competitors. If you're not aware of more than one competitor and how you differentiate, you're probably nervous because you don't know how to handle common objections. And it's on you to learn more about the competitive landscape and exactly what makes you different in each use case. These are the types of things from a sales perspective. While I'm not telling him how to implement things on code, I'm saying, hey, you're not even aware right now of the differences of our product and a competitive product that functions very similar, but is missing on a few key features that we have and they don't. Same thing with emails. You think about when you first start, everything you type feels like a huge deal. And even when I was working with that CTO, I was still pretty new in my career. Every follow-up email seemed like such a huge deal. But the more you go through it, the more you realize, again, if you're equipped with the proper knowledge on the technical side, and you also have the sales acumen to provide value to every stakeholder in that chain, in my case, it was the CTO, the VP of engineering, and their lead developer, I was able to quickly relay the most important information to every level of the stakeholders involved in that interaction. And again, some of this is repetition. You're not just gonna walk in week one and feel 100% confident, but as you get into your role, if you're 3 to 6 months in and you're still feeling uncomfortable, that is a problem. It's probably signaling that you don't know enough about the technical differentiators of your product, and or it's also signaling that you need to work more on your sales strategies as well. And this is the thing that I think separates so many salespeople from the start, is the ones that are working 9 to 5 and taking all of the in-house training, they do okay, usually at best. But especially year 1 and year 2, the people who are working 9 to 5, taking all the company training, they're working hard during those hours, and then they're going home and they're casually reading a white paper a day. They're casually reading a chapter of a sales book every night. For those first 1 to 2 years, you're gonna see those exponential returns on your career and quickly rise up in your sales career if you're actually committing to the craft. So just restating back at the beginning of what I said in the first place, if you're new to tech sales, the number one piece of advice that I give is you want this job to feel as normal as possible, as quickly as possible. You're gonna fall on your face, and that's just part of it, especially early on, but you need to be very honest with yourself and don't run away from the pain and lean into the things that you don't know. Understand what it is from the technical side that you really need to know about your product, and understand from a sales side, if you're not able to drive conversations, if you're not able to ask meaningful questions, you probably need to read more books about how to run calls. You probably need to listen to a lot of calls from top performers on your team, and you need to constantly be challenging the way that you're doing things until you find repeatable success. So I hope that helps. We will see you soon. Have a great week.